Hi, my name is Sheri Cifaldi-Morrill. I'm a designer, quilter, and pattern publisher. I machine piece most of my quilts, but I always like to have a portable project that I can take while I'm on the go, and needle turn applique is perfect for this. As you can see from the sample here, needle turn applique leaves you with a nice finished crisp edge, and you can also incorporate lots of different shapes into your design. Let me show you the steps to get started. First, you want to prepare your fabric. So I have my top layer, my applique layer, and my background layer, and I've starched both. This helps prevent the edges from fraying when you cut it, and it also gives it a nice rigidity, which helps when you start to work with it. Once that's set, I went ahead and I cut my top layer of applique out, and then I also went ahead and hemmed and basted the perimeter edge. This again helps keep things a little bit less messy when you're working with it, and you can remove those basting stitches when you're done or just cut out the hem. Once you position your design where you want it on your background, you're going to use applique pins to secure it. And these applique pins are great because in the next step, your thread is less likely to get caught up in them, and you're also less likely to stab yourself. So once your applique pins are attached all the way around the perimeter, then we'll want to start thread basting. You'll want to select a thread color that contrasts with your applique layer. So I'm going to use this white one. I went ahead and I made a knot in the end of my thread, and I'm just using a long, thin needle. It can be an applique needle for this part. You'll want a measuring tool like one of these so that you can measure a nice 1/4 inch from the edge of your raw edge, from your raw edge. So next, just align the tip of your measuring gauge so that until you measure 1/4 inch, and you're going to insert your needle through both layers of fabric, the applique and the background, and then you're going to come up about 1/2 inch to 1 inch away, whatever's comfortable for you, and pull. The knot is important so that you don't pull your thread out, but you don't want to yank it. You want everything to lay nice and flat. You're going to continue to baste all the way around the perimeter, and you may find that around the tight curves, you need to shorten your stitch length just to keep a consistent 1/4 inch from the raw edge. So here I have one that has been basted all the way around the perimeter, and now it's time to applique. So you'll want to select a thread that matches as closely to your applique fabric as possible, because you want those finished stitches not to show and to blend. You'll also want to select a really fine thread, and I like this thread that's meant for paper piecing. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to use a dark thread so that you can see my stitches. You'll want to make a knot in the end of it again, and then I also recommend keeping your thread pretty short. If you make it really, really long, it's going to get tangled easily. Once you have your thread on the needle, you're then going to use either a beeswax or a thread conditioner to coat the thread. This will help the thread glide through that fabric, and it'll also help prevent it from getting tangled. So once I have my fabric, now we're going to turn the fabric under so that the raw edge meets that basting stitch. So you can use your needle to get started, but I often find to get it started, it's easier to use your fingers and just pinch it. So essentially, like I said, that raw edge is going to go under and meet that basting stitch, and that's what's going to keep everything consistent all the way around. So next, you're going to take your needle and you're going to insert it between the top layer, your applique layer, and your background. You're going to push it in and bring it out right at that fold and pull. Again, don't yank. You don't want anything to gather. You can use the tip of your needle to just push the tail thread in, and you'll want to make sure that your applique layer stays folded underneath about 1 inch ahead of where you're working, and you want to remain fairly consistent with that, and you can use your thumb to hold that down. Next, to get started, we're going to take our needle and we're going to insert it into just the background layer right next to where the thread is coming out of the applique layer. You're going to insert it through the background fabric, and then you're going to come up through the background fabric about 1/8 of an inch away. And then as you're doing that, you're going to try to grab, or you're not going to try, you're going to grab a few threads of your applique layer right at that fold and bring your thread through. So that's our first stitch that attaches our applique layer to the background. And then you're just going to repeat. So insert your needle right next to where the thread is coming out of the applique layer. Insert it into just the background layer. Bring it up through the background layer about 1/8 of an inch away. And then also grab on your needle a couple of threads right at that fold of the applique and pull. You can, while you're stitching along, you can look on the back to see how consistent your stitches are and making sure that they're close together. That'll make that applique very secure. Let me show you how to deal with some of the trickier edges. So when you get to a 90-degree corner, you'll want to continue about 1 inch ahead to continue to fold that applique underneath. And then as you get close to the corner, using your needle or your fingers if you have to, you'll rotate and you'll find what's comfortable for you to grab. You're going to just fold under at the perpendicular corner. You'll then continue your stitching, and you can use your needle to tuck in any edges or stray threads. You'll continue to stitch till you get to the corner. I like to put an extra stitch right at that corner to make it extra secure. And you're going to go, again, straight down and up. And then you're going to continue stitching along that edge. When you get to an interior corner, you'll need a sharp pair of scissors with a fine point. You want to clip at that corner very carefully, just a few threads of that fabric, less than 1/8 of an inch in. You're just going to clip a little bit, and that clip is going to allow us to get the bulk of that fabric at the corner under. So again, using your needle, you're going to push the fabric under, and then you're also, as you get close to that edge, you're also going to start to push under the fabric at the perpendicular edge. And you're going to stitch along that using your needle to, again, just kind of sweep in that interior corner. Continue to stitch along, add an extra stitch at the corner, and then continue your stitching. When you get to some tight curves, we're going to use our scissors again to clip just like we did that interior corner. So what you'll do is, again, clipping ever so slightly, a couple of those threads, less than 1/8 of an inch, you're just going to clip all the way around that curve, every 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. And that little clipping will help alleviate the bulk and allow you to turn that underneath and continue your stitching. The same technique here will also work for exterior curves. For more gentle curves, you'll probably find that you don't need to clip. But if you're finding that it's hard to get your edge underneath consistently, go ahead and clip. Let me show you how to finish your thread when you get to the end of your thread or you're done with your applique piece. To finish, you're going to take your needle and you're going to insert it into the background, just like we did to start a stitch into the background. But this time, instead of coming up, you're going to turn it over. You're going to go through your last stitch, and we're going to make a knot. I then like to bury my thread between the background and the applique layer so that any threads, any stray threads don't show through the background. So I'm just going to go through that last hole that I came up through and insert my needle. I'm going to turn it over to make sure I don't see the needle or the thread through here. You're going to pull, and then you're just going to clip. So again, just continue stitching all the way around, and you'll have your finished applique. Let me show you some examples of quilts that I've needle turned appliqued. In my Think Big mini quilt, I actually have 2 layers of applique. I first appliqued the light pink layer to the background of the quilt, and then once that was attached, I layered on top this darker pink layer and needle turned appliqued that. For my double wedding knot quilt, I actually machine pieced the design and then needle turn appliqued it. So needle turn applique does take a little bit more time and practice than other types of applique, but the results are well worth it. I hope you'll give it a try.